Welcome to Camnet TV Main News. I am Precious Muzea Sakadeji. The headlines. LUSAKA businessman survives mob justice on suspicion of harboring a dead body in the fridge. Mourners continue to struggle to bury the dead at CHINGWERE burial site. And Zambia police boss warns officers against corrupt activities. And in international news, DRC'S MUKWEGE criticizes TSHISEKEDI'S handling of security in East. And in sports, local authority urged to revive council swimming pools in communities. Details coming through after this commercial. The Agriculture and Commercial Show is back, bigger and better under the theme Innovation Through Technology. And as Camnet TV, we are here to transform your business through our technology. Advertise with us on discounted rates during the month of July and during the Agriculture and Commercial Show. Special price package for live stunt interviews, on-screen product placement during the coverage of the show. For more details, call the following numbers. Camnet TV, not just another channel. And now the main news in detail. LUSAKA residents have bemoaned the poor state at LUSAKA's CHINGWERE cemetery in Material constituency. A check by Camnet News at the cemetery found some mourners who explained that the cemetery is full to capacity and people are forced to bury their loved ones on the pieces of land which were already used. Margaret Nkole says the situation at the cemetery holds no sense of respect to the departed, hence calling on the local authority to provide alternatives. Meanwhile, LUSAKA City Public Relations could not give the status of the cemetery by broadcast time as she was still consulting from the Public Health Department.
The LUSAKA City Council is on record of having trashed observations by members of the public that LUSAKA's CHINGWERE cemetery is full to capacity. A check by this journalist reviews that the cemetery is out of burying space as mourners struggle to bury their loved ones due to scarce burial space. Some mourners found at the site explained the status of the cemetery.
Sometimes on our kumba at a box yap or a parimuntu, but Josapo by the other side. So kuno chitemanda yose ni ozura kwana mzaende mwendeu so mzapeza ni kwa kudala kwa tumetuna kwanza sotu na maspace kulibe bakumba chaba pinda mula chani doti kamine kulili kuno kupinda mula che doti eka pinda mula so yonse doti yonse ni bantu bonse mine muona doti amine ni bantu chaba pinda mula chabi na mine kulili kuchingwe deve man deve
squeezing, there's a person they have already buried here, they just squeeze you at the middle part. So they should create another space so that they can bury us properly. Because when you go to a bury site, someone is burying 100 meters from you and there are someone 300 meters. So that's not good. They are supposed to have another place where they can people bury properly, so that you don't have to panic on digging the...
While concern over the shortage of burial spaces has been persistent, to others it is business as usual despite the LUSAKA City Council calling for an end to the vice.
20 kwacha maegi, 3 kwacha. Okay.
But this narrative has unsettled some mourners who feel the country has lost values and morals owing to lack of respect for the dead.
Ogulisa bapaka agulisa mamoba chani vosiana siana na nsoni walibe balasti paka ena zambo pika na nsima kwa mene kuno so aba bantu tipempe kamba kuti muzibe nawo vochita kuno siku malo yogulisira ko vakudi yayi siku malo yamene tinga nkhale tidyera ko vakudi yayi yano ni malo ya chisoni yakuti tonse tichoka kumanyomba tibwera kuno bora ulira but benango bakumwa mamoba bakolewa baona monga ni masobe
ngati Zambia we call the Christian nation. Why stinga lemekeze mali tifuni kolemekeza mali kwa mali ro ni chintu cholema maningi bali mu ona mali ro ni chintu cholemekeza maningi chifukwa ngati ufuni kozindikira nanga ngati ndiwe wafa olo ngati maliro ali paliwe vanzako akumwamo, how do you feel? So maboma wayanganepo awasekileko wapereka wa vantu amakulisa.
When reached for a comment, Lusaka City Council's communication unit told this journalist that it was consulting the Public Health Department. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News in Lusaka.
Man of Lusaka West has survived a mob of residents whose intentions were to burn his butchery on suspicions that he has been keeping dead bodies. Speaking to Camnet TV, residents of Chilenge Ward 8 say the butchery has been emitting a bad odor for some days, saying they were alarmed moment they spotted trails of blood leading to the butchery. Meanwhile, when the Lusaka City Council, in collaboration with the police, inspected the butchery in question, only thousands of dead rotten chickens were discovered. About 2,500 traders at Lusaka's commercial market may soon be displaced following a pending demolition of their makeshift stalls, according to a letter attributed to the Lusaka City Council with a 7-day ultimatum on account of their stalls being constructed on a road reserve. In an interview, the traders have questioned the rationale behind demolishing their stalls in the face of inadequate market infrastructure for all the traders in the capital city and amidst prosecution of street vendors. They have since called on the decision to be rescinded until an alternative place is given to them, stating that they have no other means of survival.
We are here in Lusaka's commercial market, where about 500 makeshift stores are due for demolition, according to a letter attributed to the Lusaka City Council LCC and dated 18th July 2022. The letter has a 7-day ultimatum from the stated date, and if the demolition takes place, it will mean that 2,500 traders will be displaced and potentially be turned into street vendors. Commercial market has a long history of land wrangles. The first incident took place in 2021, where 31 makeshift stores were demolished by the Lusaka City Council as they were constructed in front of legally constructed shops. These traders' names were, however, written down, and they were allocated space in the Simon Lane market, which is still under construction but almost complete. So behind me here is another incident where about 2,500 traders are in potential threat of displacement if the 500 makeshift stores are actually demolished, according to the letter. So here are their views.
So we're not even sure if at all this is authentic or not, because if you can remember, just to add a lift to the branch that I'm trying to make, if you can remember, the Lusaka Province Minister, Madam Sheo Muliata, came on the ground for a fact-finding mission, and after she discovered those trading shelters were illegally demolished, she issued a directive to that effect that those trading shelters should be put back for people to start trading in. But since then, nothing has happened.
That's not in order. We want things to be in order. This is democracy. Aye, tufunika kukamba chamene tumvera. Tufuna kubachita disappoint mwamene tunachitira banzao. Chifukwa tuanze quiet, but nabola bata disappoint. We don't want. Help us.
Ichenja mtenze kufuna titandizileni tavutika tebana vanhu vakainde ichilema ndine karoma ngangu pano tavutika so kuno futi vatipwanjira tili be mashop ise tizaenda kuti ndimo mtiganizireko mwedi mtikambireko president pempa kulimo president direct.
We also reached out to the Lusaka City Council and the Ministry of Local Government, because the Minister of Local Government, Gary Nkombo, is actually on record indicating that street vendors will actually be left for now because there's no alternative place. If that is the case for street vendors, what is the way forward for these traders, because there is no alternative place for them to go? So we'll continue to follow the matter and see how it develops. Zipora Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Man of Lusaka West has survived a mob of residents whose intentions were to burn his butchery on suspicion that he has been keeping dead bodies. Speaking to Camnet TV, residents of CHINGWERE Ward 8 said the butchery has been emitting a bad odor for some days, saying they were alarmed the moment they spotted trails of blood leading to the butchery. Meanwhile, when Lusaka City Council, in collaboration with the police, inspected the butchery in question, only thousands of dead rotten chickens were discovered.
Tempers flared in Lusaka's CHINGWERE area Thursday afternoon after a mob of residents stormed a named butchery in the area on suspicions that the owner has been keeping a dead body. The mob in loud voices were calling on the owner to open the butchery so that they inspect what he has been hiding. Details on the matter are that a Mr. Sante Chimonyo of Lusaka West area has been allegedly accused to have been holding a dead body in his butchery owing to the fact that residents of CHINGWERE Ward 8 have been smelling a bad odor emitting from the butchery, and that in the early hours of today, residents had spotted some trails of blood leading to his butchery, which has been non-operational for almost 4 years now. However, when the matter reached police, who rushed to the scene with Lusaka City Council Public Health Team to inspect the named butchery, only a number of dead and rotten chickens were found in the said butchery. And speaking to journalists, the owner of the shop, Sante Chimonyo, had this to say.
It's not working at the moment. The shop does not operate at the moment. Except our code rooms were working. And now, because we are keeping chickens in Lusaka West at the farm, so we had challenges on how to keep them. We had to bring them in the code room. Okay? So now, because we are not working, it took us time to discover that our code rooms were vandalized. Are you with me? So thieves went in behind, we don't know how. It took us over a week, because we are not always here, to discover that actually where we keep chickens, the code rooms have been vandalized. And I should be honest, when my workers came to check, they heard the smell. That's how we discovered that something is amiss in the shop. So we came, my wife came yesterday, opened the shop, that's when they found what we found here.
Meanwhile, CHINGWERE Ward 8 Councillor Ruben Mwenya says the matter will be followed up to its logical conclusion.
We are in these premises where we've discovered that there were a lot of rotten chickens that were kept here. So we are just trying to see how we can conclude. So we are seizing all these chickens, and apparently there are some chickens that were picked from this place last night. So from here we are touring to see where those chickens were taken before they can be exposed to people.
Though Mr. Chimonyo claims that his butchery was vandalized 2 weeks ago, thus leading to his chickens rotting, residents do not seem to be convinced. Messi Chanika reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
Zambia Institute for Chartered Accountants ZICA President Cecilia Zimba says ensuring food security in Africa will only happen when local production is increased to indulge agriculture imports. Addressing the media on the performance of the economy in the recent months, Ms. Zimba says the recently held African Union AU Summit provides an opportunity for African countries to share knowledge on how each country can build its capacity to produce or agriculture inputs such as fertilizer locally. She adds that food security is the first step towards development, as it will ensure a healthy and productive human resource. The ZICA president has also noted that the recent reduction in inflation from 10.3% to 9.7%, stating that this should benefit citizens by reflecting on the affordability of food through a price reduction of key commodities.
Successfully hosted the event as it was an opportunity to promote our beautiful country, our hospitality, and numerous opportunities in tourism, trade, and investments, among others. As ZICA, we agree with the African Union's call on member states to start producing inputs in their wide variety, fertilizer and farming inputs on the continent as opposed to relying on countries outside the continent for important value chains. The African continent, and Zambia in particular, will continue to struggle in the area of food security if it still relies on importation of fertilizer from Europe. It was gratifying to note that nutrition and food security were at the center stage of discussion. We are looking forward to a stabilization of food security for households and the world as a whole to reduce poverty. Matters concerning the setting up of the African Stock Exchange are welcome, as this would ensure ease of access of wider country cross-investments. In this way, we could see an exponential growth to the economy of the African continent and a turnaround of the lives of its citizens.
The Center for Policy, Trade and Development, CTPD, says the pandemic-related restrictions have affected agricultural livelihoods whilst exposing inequalities across gender. Speaking at the launch of the study report focusing on mainstream gender for enhanced COVID-19 rural livelihood recovery in Zambia, CTPD senior researcher Dr. Simon Manda says the research has shown that most women in rural areas had lost their sources of income due to the pandemic. He says there is need to promote and strengthen gendered access to savings and credit, as well as strengthen intra-household relations to increase men's participation in the domestic care. And CTPD Executive Director Isaac Mwaipopo says the national policy interventions have largely been at the micro level despite national claims about the need for a multi-sectorial pandemic approach.
Is that a pandemic of such magnitude, this is not the first time it will happen. You never know. Maybe we'll come out of a COVID-19 and the next year or this year we hear there is another one. They talk about monkey and so on. You don't know. And so it's a question of how prepared are governments when it comes to tackling this issue, especially when it comes to that impact at the individual level.
Without a clear-cut sensitization of how markets are going to be accessed, it disadvantages not only rural producers more broadly, but women specifically that were quick to withdraw. But also the other reaction would be mobilize resources that can be able to go and support specific and existing viable ventures.
Development will be launching our policy brief that focuses on the state of the economy, and under this policy brief we'll be looking at the performance of the Zambian economy from January to June, the first 6 months of 2022. Within that policy brief you have information with regards to the performance of the budget, revenue collections from the Zambia Revenue Authority.
Police Inspector General Lemi Gajoba has warned police officers to desist from indulging in corrupt activities, as his office will not condone corruption. Speaking during the launch of the police ethics training module, Mr. Gajoba says police forces have a mandate to uphold the law, hence indulgence in corrupt activities only robs the nation of its valuable economic resources. Meanwhile, the Anti-Corruption Commission ACC Director Gilbert Piri says police officers are on record of extorting money from motorists at roadblocks and speed traps at the expense of their mandate. He says the Commission has been receiving a series of complaints from the general public who have since accused the police of professional misconduct.
The police service plays a crucial role in ensuring that law and order is upheld in any given society. However, in the recent past, members of the community have alleged that the Zambia Police Service has been unprofessional in the execution of their mandate. This is due to many instances which have occurred and has caused members of the community to lose confidence in the police service, citing the illogical conclusions on investigations following the death of the former state prosecutor Samansama and Joseph Kunda, who was believed to be a UPND sympathizer. They failed to locate the alleged abduction of a mobile money agent, Pamela Chisumpa, receiving of bribes from citizens, especially on roadblocks and speed traps, getting intoxicated whilst on duty, among other allegations, have made members of the public to lose confidence in the police. However, in order to eliminate such vices, the police service, in conjunction with the Anti-Corruption Commission, SCC, and the Transparency International Zambia, TIZ, have launched the first ever module on police ethics and training, said to be a foundation on what is the acceptable behavior in the police unit. And speaking during the launch Thursday morning, the Inspector General of Police, Lemika Joba, has stressed the need for men and women in uniform to exercise professionalism on and off duty, saying that his office will not condone any corrupt activities.
I wish to sound this warning. That those who indulge in corrupt tendencies, you better right now desist from such vices. Be reminded that my office takes zero tolerance towards corruption, and that law will sternly deal with all those bad acts. I don't need to describe them as officers, but bad acts within our system. As Inspector General of Police, I will make sure that I work towards implementing strategies in the institution that envisions a principled, profession and value-centered Zambia Police Service.
And speaking at the same event, Transparency International Zambia Programs Manager Raymond Mutale says TIZ is delighted to launch this module as it will go a long way in promoting integrity, transparency and accountability in the Zambia Police Service.
With this module is that they want to apply a system-based, a system-focused response to this challenge. I'm reliably informed that the module will provide a clear standard to strive for a service and the mechanism by which the officers shall dispense their duties without compromise, with independence, impartiality, dignity, accessibility and effectiveness of what is required of the Zambia Police Service.
Meanwhile, the Anti-Corruption Commission SCC, through their director Gilbert Peary, says police officers are on record of receiving bribes from motorists on roadblocks and speed traps to hide offenders from facing the law, something he says should be put to a stop once this unit is implemented.
The commitment of the Zambia Police Service to uphold high levels of ethical conduct by all officers in performing their duties. Let me assure you that the Anti-Corruption Commission is committed to working with the Zambia Police Service in the prevention and combating of corruption within the service.
Messi Janika reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
The Anti-Corruption Commission ACC has appealed against the 2-year sentence imposed on former Postmaster General Macpherson Chanda and 2 others for theft by public servant involving over 300 million kwacha. ACC spokesperson CHINGWERE explains that the notice of appeal against the judgment, which was filed in the subordinate court in Ndola, is on the basis that sentencing principles were not followed and the lenient sentence does not reflect the seriousness of the offense, especially that the money involved was for the underprivileged members of society. Earlier this month, the Ndola subordinate court under the Financial and Economic Crimes Division convicted and sentenced former Postmaster General Macpherson Chanda, among others.
Earlier this month, the Ndola Subordinate Court under the Financial and Economic Crimes Division convicted and sentenced former Postmaster General Macpherson Chanda, Best Mwaichi, Director of Finance, and Isaac Kamwimba, Director of Operations, for 2 years imprisonment on 13 counts of theft by public servant, contrary to Section 265, as read with Section 277 of the Penal Code, Chapter 87 of the Laws of Zambia. The sentence followed the conviction of the trio by the subordinate court in a case in which they stood trial for corrupt acquisition of funds contrary to Section 34(1)(b, as read with Section 41 of the Anti-Corruption Acts No. 3 of 2012. The trio diverted funds received for payment of social cash transfer to vulnerable beneficiaries by committing it into a fixed deposit account to earn interest before disbursing it without the consent of the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services. The convicts were jointly arrested by the Anti-Corruption Commission and the Drug Enforcement Commission DEC in 2021 for corrupt practices.
Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development Gary Nkombo has attributed the delay in the approval of empowerment loans under the Constituency Development Fund to the fact that his ministry is still in the process of determining which financial institution to work with. Updating Parliament Thursday on the uptake of the CDF resources, Mr. Nkombo says his ministry has so far approved proposals for all components except empowerment loans. And the minister says his ministry has also adopted a 10 working days turnaround policy which demands that the administration process for the approval of projects, program and beneficiaries for various components be undertaken within 10 days of receiving the proposal. He says this is expected that the move will enhance the uptake of the CDF resources.
The increase in constituency development funds from 1.6 million kwacha to 25.7 million kwacha by the United Party for National Development UPND administration came with various critiques from some sector of society, including the opposition leaders who believe the initiative is a hoax that will amount to nothing and its implementation will be a failure. However, the government is determined to prove its critics wrong by ensuring the success of the implementation of the projects under the 25.7 million kwacha constituency development funds. To that effect, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development Gary Nkombo has told Parliament that his government has so far released a total of 2,205,365,577.12 kwacha for the implementation of CDF projects. The minister adds that all the 156 constituencies have so far received a total of about 6.4 million kwacha each.
This entails that each constituency has so far received 6,433,695.67 kwachas, which includes the costs of administration.
Mr. Nkombo also says all projects under CDF have been approved except empowerment funds, adding that the government is still looking for a financial institution to engage in this matter.
My ministry has made much more progress in approving proposals for all the components except the empowerment loans, which is now still a subject of the determination of which financial institution we are going to go with.
And in order to improve the uptake of the 25.7 million kwacha, the minister says his ministry has also adopted a 10 working day turnaround policy which demands that the administrative processes for the approval of projects, programs and beneficiaries for various components be undertaken within 10 days of receiving the proposals.
In further streamlining the administration processes, my ministry has effected a 10 working day turnaround policy. This demands that the administrative processes for approval of projects and programs and beneficiaries for the various components will be undertaken within 10 working days following the receipt of the proposals at the ministry. Thank you. It is expected that this will result in increased uptake of funds by respective constituencies.
He has since appealed to all members of Parliament to ensure all applications are in line with the guidelines to avoid any inconveniences. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Republican President Hakainde Hichilema has reaffirmed his commitment to restructuring the country's debt in order to foster development across the country. Speaking during a tour of the Kafue Gorge hydropower station in Chikankata district, President Hakainde Hichilema expressed confidence that once the debt of the country is restructured, more power stations will be built with priority on local contractors. He says such natural projects should focus on the local so as to spur investment and grow the economy on the basis of empowerment. The president has, however, challenged the power utility firm ZESCO to create a community trust that stands as a bench to supporting communities.
Thank you. Going forward, we would like projects like this to have more local contractors, subcontractors, different pieces, so that we can increase the contribution of such a project to the economy, and therefore more jobs and more business opportunities. That's the way it works. There's no other way. We appreciate that ZESCO, you are doing community projects. Community projects alongside these hydropower stations. We appreciate that. So we encourage ZESCO to do a bit more for the local community. These people need to have a feel that this is their project and they are benefiting from it, including ensuring that they have electricity.
We'll take our first set of commercials. We'll be back with more news after this.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that Oracle is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. Oracle Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes and keeps your skin perfect. Oracle Pure Petroleum products for that perfect skin.
The Agriculture and Commercial Show is back, bigger and better under the theme Innovation Through Technology. And as Camnet TV, we are here to transform your business through our technology. Advertise with us on discounted rates during the month of July and during the Agriculture and Commercial Show. Special price package for live stunt interviews, on-screen product placement during the coverage of the show. For more details, call the following numbers. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Welcome back. We'll continue with the rest of the main news. The United Party for National Development UPND youth leadership on the Copperbelt province has disowned alleged UPND cadres who recently disrupted a donation by Kwacha constituency member of parliament John Malanji at Wulangililo Clinic in his constituency. In an interview, UPND Copperbelt Vice Youth Chairperson Mr. Farewell Hachingala said individuals are not known to the party as alleged by the Kwacha lawmaker that he was attacked by UPND Wulangililo Ward Youth Chairperson. Meanwhile, UPND Alliance partner Republican Progressive Party RPP acting president Mr. Cassius Akapelwa says the matter should be investigated to bring out the truth as President Hakainde Hichilema has made a strong stance against political violence.
Recent years in Zambia have recorded incidents of political violence where rival political parties have perpetuated this vice against each other due to low tolerance levels. The United Party for National Development UPND, which came to office on 12th August 2021, denounced this vice, stating that all perpetrators, including those belonging to the party, were on their own. 19th July 2022, however, saw a turn to the peace and quiet on the political scene after alleged UPND cadres attacked Kwacha Member of Parliament Mr. John Malanji at Wulangililo Clinic, where he was handing out some items in a donation. According to the lawmaker, he was allegedly attacked attacked by UPND Bulangililo Ward Youth Chairperson along with other cadres who came in some motor vehicles and started throwing stones and bottles at people who attended the gathering. The UPND on the Copper Belt have however disowned the attackers, stating that they are not known to the party. UPND Copper Belt Deputy Youth Chairperson Mr. Farewell Hachingala was speaking to Camnet News.
The purported youths from UPND are not UPND. Those are PF hooligans who have beaten Malanji. UPND youths are disciplined youths under the leadership of Provincial Chairman Mr. Elisha Matambo.
Meanwhile, UPND Deputy National Youth Chairperson Mr. Trevor Mwinde has also added his voice.
Those are people that are presidential hopefuls in the Patriotic Front run up for presidency, and he should not be able to hide anymore. If at all, he has many other challenges amongst them of those things that which are challenging him in court. We as the youths of the UPND are not part and parcel of his narrative and his problems. Let him sort it out. This is an internal political party meeting of the PF behavior signature. It is their culture, and every other Zambian can agree with us. Let him not even start challenging the police so I can point them. He knows them. They live in Burangiriro. They gave him a good run for his money. Then he wants to now start using the law to start arresting our youth. That is unacceptable.
In a separate interview, UPND Alliance partner Republican Progressive Party RPP acting president Mr. Kesha Sakapelwa has also spoken out, stating that the matter should be thoroughly investigated.
Going forward, we encourage the police officers to go on the ground, investigate and prosecute the perpetrators of violence. Because as the UPND Alliance, we are of the view that Kadaism is the one that has brought these institutions down. So for it to be discouraged or rather curtailed, it takes leadership. So we encourage a Copper Belt leadership and together in tandem with the police, let them investigate the matter to the core and bring the perpetrators to book.
Political violence has many negative effects on a country as it dents its image to the international community. The emphasis from stakeholders has been for perpetrators to be made to face the law regardless of political affiliation. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Leadership Movement President Dr. Richard Sulumbe has advised the government to focus on primary jobs as opposed to secondary jobs in order to spur productivity levels in the country. Dr. Sulumbe notes that while it is commendable that over 30,000 jobs have been created through the recruitment of teachers and the pending staffing of 11,000 health practitioners, more still needs to be done in the production sector. Speaking when he was featured on the Camnet Breakfast Show, Dr. Sulumbe notes that most Zambians have become educated slaves who glorify anything foreign at the expense of promoting local initiatives for economic growth. The opposition leader has discouraged the tendency of government of leaving manufacturing and industrialization to the private sector.
Pronouncements, I don't celebrate pronouncement myself. We believe as leadership movement that only our toil, only our labor, our sacrifices, our production machinery is what is going to earn us the lot that we want. If we continue selling our natural resources, talking about the biggest nickel mine, when we can produce our own nickel in Zambia and be able to sell and secure, we should be learning from the Eastern Bloc. For God's sake, imagine these Western countries, they abused Africa from 1500s. They got cheap labor, slaves, they produced, they made serious investment, reserves. Then they said, now we cannot run businesses. Now we'll be giving for our people money so they can go and exploit Africa. And this is what they are doing. And this is why they are getting oil natural resources. They've told your government that government should not participate in business. You should just sit down and wait for these foreign investors with their money to come and exploit our resources. And yet, the Eastern Bloc doesn't believe They've never been brainwashed by Western countries. This is why when you go to Saudi Arabia, they are running.
Stakeholders have underscored the need to attach seriousness towards combating the cassava brown streak disease that has broken out in Luapula and northern province of Zambia. The disease was first recorded in Zambia in 2017. It is reported that the disease originated from East Africa in 1930. According to the crop expert, the disease is in two types, namely cassava brown streak disease and Uganda cassava brown streak disease. Meanwhile, the Zambia Agriculture Research Institute says it has taken a proactive stance to mitigate the disease by aiding farmers with non-infected crops, among other measures.
The cassava brown streak disease, CBSD, has led to associated yield losses of $1 billion in Africa, according to the Center for Bioscience, CABI. Cassava is the second most economically important crop in Zambia after maize and is widely grown in northern, Luapula, northwestern and western provinces and some part of Lusaka and central provinces. Indeed, an estimated 30% of the population, mostly subsistence farmers, depend on cassava as a staple crop and as a source of income. To help raise awareness on the disease, a media orientation meeting was organized by Ziwa Science and Technology, DSAT, with the help of CABI, the Zambia Agriculture Research Institute and the Ministry of Agriculture. Veronica Mwaba is DSAT Executive Director, who spoke to us on the sideline of the meeting.
And some of the families in Luapula, for example, they rely on cassava. And cassava is the second staple apart from maize. It is a cash crop, and we have industries at the moment who are relying on cassava. So it is important that the government, put in a lot of resources to assist researchers to continue their work, and the journalist capacity should be built.
At the Center for Bioscience, CABI emphasized on the need to combat the cassava brown streak disease.
Then indeed we are left nothing. And that is why research confirms that if cassava brown streak disease attacks a field, then it could be even 100% loss. The reason is simple. The leaves are attacked, and also the roots and the stem is damaged, which means the plant is able to manufacture the food, neither can it distribute the food to all the parts where it is needed. And what is even worse, if the root is attacked, then there is no any food that is left for us.
The government, through the Ministry of Agriculture,